Hello and welcome back to the Irish Mammy channel. I'm up in the polytunnel again today, hoping to get a few small jobs done. One being planting these peas behind me here, and I know they're probably a bit blurry. So I sowed these are dwarf peas. I didn't actually write down the variety, so I'm almost sure they're a podding variety. But they're a dwarf variety. Now normally when we're growing peas we have to grow them on a trellis. An A-frame trellis would be the most common type of trellis to grow your peas on. I'm trying to think, I think we have one out here outside. So you can see in the distance there an A-frame trellis. That would be the norm for growing most podding peas, and even some of the Monge 2 and Sugar Snap varieties as well. But because these are a dwarf pea, we get to make much easier growing grid, and I'll show you more up close what that involves. Very simple structure, and it can be used for lots of different applications. Also I have a box of tricks there behind me. I need to get my hose sorted out. My harvesting system, there are two hoses at the back of this polytunnel. One uses water from a water harvesting system, and it's currently empty at the minute, which is laughable considering all the rain we've had. But there's quite a high demand on it on this site in general, with 3 different polytunnels altogether. So it's gone empty at the minute. Hence why the need to get my hose pipe up and working on the other tap, because it comes from the mains water, but I never reconnected the hose when I moved it from the other polytunnel. So that hopefully will be a quick job. After that we'll see if we get to anything else. I might take a look at my tomatoes as well and give a wee update on those. I have those up here now, moved out of my propagator, or at least some of them, probably a third of them. Haven't even got them all potted on yet, so I potted on about a third, left those in the propagator, let them mature, and boy did they mature quickly. They were popping out the top of the propagator, so I moved them up here to cooler conditions to a small greenhouse over on the far side of this allotment site, and I potted on some more and still have more to pot on, and almost had a disaster as usual. I have to have at least one every season. So my tomatoes got a little overheated after a very warm day, the day before yesterday, and even yesterday morning. I think I just got them in the nick of time. So I potted them on very quickly and took a wee peep at them there this morning. They're starting to come back to life, so fingers crossed they're all right. But as usual, I overplant or oversow tomatoes anyway, so even if I only get half of them to come back, I'll be doing well, and I'll still have enough tomatoes. So enough yakking. We're going to get on with the peas. So these peas, I'm going to have to remove the mypex, which is going to be an ongoing thing, putting down and removing mypex from these beds, even though I'm only after putting it down. Just there's so many plants, it would be a bit ridiculous planting them through the mypex. This is an early variety as well, so we're really only growing them for about 8, 10, 12 weeks max. The plan is to get them out and get a crop of winter leeks in then after that. So just at the very end of March, so we say April, May and June, these peas will be growing, and clear them out then to make way for winter leeks sown in. Well, I'll probably be sowing them very soon. I have not done my main seed sowing of the year yet, because I'm actually planning to be away for a few days, and then the major seed sowing will start after that. Not much point in sowing seeds and then heading off, not looking after them. So the leeks will probably be sown within the next 2 weeks, and you know, leeks and the allium family in general take a while to come on, so they'll be well established, good pencil size before I plant them out at the end of June or beginning of July, and they'll grow on really well into the winter, and I will have leeks to harvest all through the winter. that's the plan. So first to get the peas in. It's a bit ridiculous talking about the next crop when I haven't even this crop in. So let's get to work. Okay, so I'm just going to talk through this. It's not really rocket science. What I'm doing is creating a grid of squares or rectangles or whatever the case may end up as. And I'll be using this twine. Now you can just use jute twine either. I actually don't have any jute twine at the minute. So this is like a polyline, you know, builder's polyline or something like that. Plastic covered basically, which is what I use to tie up my tomatoes. I wouldn't recommend using jute for tying up tomatoes because it rots too quick, whereas it'd be fine for this job because these are only going to be, like I said, 8 to 12 weeks max in the ground. It wouldn't have long enough to rot, and it's up from the ground as well, whereas when you're trellising your tomatoes, part of the string is buried down in the ground with the roots, and so that will rot quicker. Obviously polyline will never rot, or I'll not say never, but it'll take a long time for it to rot or wear away in the ground, no matter how wet it is. So anyway, I'm using this today just because it's what I have, and all I'm going to do is I have these very thin bamboo canes. I mean, they're just pencil thick. They're not terribly sturdy, but I don't need them to be terribly sturdy for this job. I do have bigger canes, but I don't want to break them up because they're more useful for different applications in their full length. So I'm going to cut these. So the peas, the dwarf peas, are going to grow about 2 feet max. And you know, they can trail along the top of this grid then as well when I'm finished. So I'll be cutting these just over 2 feet in length, roughly. Burying them in the ground all around the outside of the bed. So all along the outside perimeter of the bed we'll have these stakes stuck down in the ground, and then it's just a matter of running the polyline over and back and up and down to make a series of squares or a grid, with the aim being that the peas will grow up through it. Now I could put 2 grids on it if I wanted. I'm going to see how it looks when I get it started. It might just be a bit of extra support, but I really don't think they'll need it. Like I said, 8 to 12 weeks max in the ground. I can probably just let them grow away on the ground first and then support them up onto the grid or the polyline when they get tall enough. So like I said, not rocket science, but this can be used, this grid system can be used for many different applications, like I said already. The main one that I can think of at the minute is if you were doing cut flowers. It's a good way to support longer stemmed flowers to keep them upright and straight, which is obviously desirable in cut flowers, to keep the stalk straight. So that's just another application. I'm sure there are numerous other applications that could be thought of. I just can't think of them at the minute. Right, so I'm going to get on with this. No, I'm not going to bother measuring or anything. If you're a bit well, shall we say, OCD about these things. You can measure out your grid perfectly and have them all perfectly spaced at the same distance, etc., etc. I don't want to really overthink this. I want to get it done as quickly as possible, and I've already spent enough time yapping. So I'm going to put it on time lapse and give you an overshot of it then when I have it finished. Okay, so this is the rough structure. Like I said, not rocket science. Definitely not all measured out and not very even, but it doesn't matter, it'll do the best. I can adjust it slightly by moving the strings up and down if I need to, if it's too high. So I've ended up with 20 grids or 20 squares, and those trays there I think hold roughly about 80. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, maybe it's more, but I'm sure I haven't full germination on my peas. I'm roughly going to do 4 per grid, 4 plants per grid, which would be 80. And if I have many left over, I could put a 5th one in the centre, but I'll probably just stick with the 4. I think 80 plants is more than enough. I've been joined by a little helper down there in the background, rocking our way there. So yeah, like I said, it's not a terribly it won't deal with a big load. It won't take a lot of pressure, but it's plenty. I mean, these little pea plants don't really weigh much when they grow up high, and as I said, 2 feet high maximum, so I'm really not expecting it to be terribly heavy or taxing on this structure. And even if it is, I mean, it's no big deal if they're grown along the ground. I have grown these on the ground before without any supports, and they do just fine. It might just be a bit messy for harvesting the actual pods. But I've lots of helpers. They'll help harvest the pods for me, and more than likely these peas won't even make it home, especially if I have helpers harvesting them. They'll probably be eaten as quick as they're harvested. So I'm just going to get on with planting the plants now. Like I said, 4 per grid. That's the plan, at least. Okay, so not too many plug plants left, and this is why I really like growing in plugs. Hope you can see that now. Let's see. Lovely root system, just a perfect height. If you grow peas in trays, the danger is that these little what do they call them? The danger is that these little tendrils can get too long and start getting tangled all in the other plants, and you have a bit of a nightmare then trying to get them apart out of the tray. So like I said, just the perfect height, just about the length of my palm there, probably about 6 inches, so they're 1/4 of the way there already. And like I said, a lovely root system there, just maybe ever so slightly a little bit overdone, but they'll take to the ground now really well, and they'll root out fairly fast. So I just wanted to show you those perfect little plants that I'm very proud of. Usually I let them get in a tangled mess and end up not even planting them at all. Okay, there we are, all planted there now. They look a little bit wonky just because they're floppy. The bed is certainly dry, so it needs a good water, and when I get the hose pipe connected up, my little helper is going to give them a good soaking. So 2 things I hadn't anticipated. It's a little bit awkward getting in to plant those inner, where am I? Trying to go opposite myself. Those inner plants there. The inner grids are very awkward to plant. I was able to throw my foot across at one stage, so that helped. But it can be awkward, so just bear that in mind. Now, I don't think I could have planted the peas first and then ran the grid, because I wasn't sure how many grids I was actually going to get. So I guess it's just something you have to put up with. Secondly, when I had my little helper taken in to assist, I realised that the tops of those sticks would be quite dangerous. I mean, obviously I have slight bit of protection from my eyes with my glasses, but definitely something to bear in mind, and probably I will come along with something to put across the top of those just to leave them not as dangerous. I mean, I'm thinking even possibly even a bit of Play-Doh or something just to stick on the top of them so that they're not as dangerous. It needs to be light, obviously, as well, because I don't need the sticks weighted down. They're fine and light enough as it is. Anything heavy on the top of them will just topple them over. So I'll be considering that over the next few days as to what to put on top of them, especially for harvesting. Like, it'll be probably even slightly more dangerous. So just bear that in mind as well, from a health and safety point of view, for yourself or any helpers you have coming along. So next is to get the hose set up, because this really badly needs watering. So the cells themselves in the tray, the outer ones were fairly dry, but because it's such a good root system, they held together fine. But also, because my drip is not on yet, this bed has got quite dry as well. So get the hose connected up, and then my little helper will do the watering. I'm going to give a quick update just on my carrots. I'm starting to see germination on my carrots, and I think we're 2 weeks today. Yeah, two weeks today from sowing the carrots, even though I'm trying to think, you only seen the video last week, but it was 2 weeks ago when I actually sowed them. So a quick update on those, and also my tomato plants in the other greenhouse. Right, so I have a variety of different accoutrements here, some new, some second hand. Of a bag of parts here that I do keep all the time and use from as necessary. And then I have, well, this is new, but they're probably cheap, I would say. And then I have this brass adapter thing, so that's a little bit more expensive, but the ideal would be to get this fitted. I'm just not sure if it actually will fit the tap. So this is the tap here. It's actually kind of an awkward tap. I'm not sure whether that's 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. So we'll start fiddling and see what we get to fit. That's the handiest job. That's definitely not going to fit. Okay, so got there finally in the end. It's a bit of a janky mess, a mixture of all sorts of different fittings. So a brass fitting, my divider here that'll divide it between both, so I can keep the hose on, and then I'll still be able to get water if I need water for a watering can here or whatever, which is actually very handy. I have one of these, a brass divider on my tap at my greenhouse at home, which is, it's definitely very handy for different applications. I could even put a timer on it if I don't get this other timer fixed for my drip, but hopefully that'll be fixed very soon. So that's another job done, and now I can get to watering the bed. So one of two updates. This is the early carrots that we sowed here in, I think it was maybe my last video. Now I have some, where am I? I have some stray seedlings here, and I'm not sure. They're either marigolds or tomatoes, I would think. So they're taken off there as well, which is another reason for using my pecs. But obviously I couldn't use it for the carrots. But you can see when I get down closer the carrot seedlings there. So they're completely different if you look at them close. So there's a broader leaf on the stray seedlings, which I think are marigolds, and the carrots have a much narrower leaf. Now of course they're not their true leaves yet, they're just the cotyledons, I think they're called. But they will develop further over time. And I have one row of cut and come again lettuce sown at the front there, and I kind of sowed that at the front, I suppose as a marker, just to gauge when my carrots should have germinated by. So it was actually a good exercise because it took over a week for the lettuce to germinate. So knowing that, I would expect it to take longer for the carrots. So it left me just a little bit more patient waiting on my carrot seedlings. But you can see all along the bed there, they're coming up fairly thick. And then this centre bed was sown, I think it ended up being the following day. I ran out of time as usual on the first day. So I sowed main crop carrots in this bed in between rows of onions. Now those onions were my overwintered onions. I may or may not get a harvest from them, but I'm using them as scent deterrents to keep away pests, namely carrot root fly, which I still haven't determined whether I'm actually at risk of carrot root fly in the polytunnel, but I probably am. So just in case, I have the onions interplanted. If they come to a crop, that'll be just a bonus. So there is some germination there, you can see in between the rows. Now I would expect the main crop to take slightly longer to germinate, so I'm happy enough at the moment with that. And I did plant towards the end here, I planted beetroot, and I think at least that is the beetroot coming up in between the rows there. I think I sowed about 3 or 4 rows. Actually, I can see the markers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I sowed 6 rows of golden beets, and then the remainder was the purple Detroit 2, and 1 Cosberg lettuce in the middle there, just for good measure. So that's one update. I'm going to bring you over to the tomatoes now in the pot in the greenhouse. Okay, so here we are in the other greenhouse, and this is the tomatoes that I have potted on. They're probably potted on 2 weeks maybe. They've been potted on and sitting in my propagator. So I went out during the week to the greenhouse. The propagator was sky high temperature wise. I think it was over 30 degrees. Even though I have all the vents open in it, but obviously the greenhouse was closed. And it's very deceptive this time of year. If the sun comes out at all, which we're delighted to see, I'm not going to complain. But these greenhouses and polytunnels can get awfully warm. Like, for example, it's 12 degrees outside today, and I have a thermometer here. We'll see if I can get up close to it. So we're at almost 20 degrees, you can see there. I hope you can see it at least. So that's how quickly the temperature can get out of control. And then obviously these were in the propagator as well, which had a double greenhouse effect. So they're a bit leggy. They were peeping out the top of the propagator, but they'll be grand. I'll be burying them quite deep when I plant them in the ground. Because I'm away for a few days, I'm planning on not getting them in the ground until next weekend. So another week, and they'll be in the ground and they'll not be sorry. And this seems to happen every year, no matter what I do. If there's any sort of a delay at all, probably because I'm starting them too early, but I start them early because I have so many to start. And then at least I have time if I have any sort of a disaster, which inevitably there's 1 or 2 disasters every season. I at least have time then to plant more, but these are all fine. And I'm trying to think what varieties these are. So I have Tigerella there, Brad's Atomic Grape, which I'm very excited for this year. Tim's Taste of Paradise, another one I'm very excited about. 2 new varieties to me that I've heard so much about. Sun Golds, of course, my old reliable. De Barao is there as well. Muscotka, which I have not grown before. And it's supposed to be very early, so hopefully that will be true. I see Marmond in the back there, and then my Amish Pastes. The Amish Pastes of all the varieties aren't just so much out of control. And they will be my main preserving variety, along with the Roma VF, which almost passed away on me yesterday morning after another bout of sunshine. But I did pot them on. The Romas had not been potted on yet. So I got the Romas potted on yesterday. I spent actually the most of the day in the greenhouse at home yesterday, getting work done and getting the beds prepared and some things planted at home yesterday. Potted on my Roma VFs anyway, and they have, I checked this morning, come back to life. So thankfully that's, still have some more potting on to do for my tomatoes. I'm so limited by space in the propagator, and I don't like to shock them too much. I like to pot them on, leave them in the propagator for at least a week and maybe 2 weeks. And then the next space will be move them here, which these have been already slightly cooler, but warmer than the polytunnel. And then they'll go to the polytunnel, and hopefully the weather, or the temperatures at least, will have improved by then. I can see an improvement in the temperatures already, so we're getting there. And I mean, the first week of April will be perfect for planting out tomatoes. I don't think I've ever seen me planting them out in March. That would certainly be too early, too much risk of low temperatures at night still at that stage. So that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. A couple of wee updates always are welcome. I'm probably not the best at the updates, but I do try. And I'm putting an extra effort in this year to show the process along the way. So if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe down below as well, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.